We tend to think democracy is all about election day, right? But what happens after the votes are in? That's where the real action is. Big decisions don't just happen overnight. They have to grind through this whole system of rules and procedures. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that system by looking at one single government decision that, well, it pretty much turned an entire nation upside down. So it all kicks off with this. Take a look. It seems pretty boring, doesn't it? Just some official-looking paper, not even a full page. But trust me, this office memorandum, dated August 13th, 1990, was like a spark in a tinderbox. This one piece of paper became the center of a massive political storm, a decision that would shape careers, split society right down the middle, and really push India's democratic system to its limits. Okay, so here's the thing. A single government official put their signature on this paper. But did they make the call? No way. So who did? Was it the Prime Minister, the whole Parliament, some secret committee? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together. And by solving it, we'll get a fantastic look at how a modern democracy is actually supposed to work. All right, first things first. Let's dig into the order itself. What on earth was written on this paper that got everyone so fired up? Here it is, the heart of the matter. This order declared that 27% of all jobs in the central government were now reserved for a group called the socially and educationally backward classes, or SEBCs for short. Now, you have to remember, reservations for scheduled castes and tribes were already a thing. This order added a whole new third category to the mix, and that meant a massive slice of government jobs was now earmarked for these specific communities. 27%. Just think about that number. It doesn't sound like much, but this single figure was about to be debated, protested, and fought over literally in the streets and in the country's highest courts. It was a huge shift in policy, and it touched the lives and dreams of thousands of people looking for jobs. So you might think this whole thing just exploded onto the scene in 1990, right? But nope. The truth is, this decision wasn't sudden at all. It was actually the final piece of a puzzle that had been put together over more than 10 years. And this timeline lays it all out perfectly. The story really kicks off way back in 1979, when a group called the Mandel Commission was formed. A year later, they hand in their report, and boom, there's that recommendation, 27% reservation. But then, nothing. For nearly 10 years, the report just sits there, getting talked about. Then, in the 1989 election, a political party makes it a campaign promise. And finally, in 1990, the government pulls the trigger. So, you see, this was no secret plan hatched in the dark. The Mandela report was a huge deal, a really hot political topic. It was debated in Parliament, splashed all over the newspapers. I mean, it was a major talking point for pretty much every political party. The pressure to finally do something about it had been simmering for a long time. Okay, so if the idea had been floating around for a decade, who were the actual players that pushed it over the finish line in August 1990? How did the gears of government finally turn and transform this old recommendation into an official order? Well, in a system like India's, any big decision like this involves a whole cast of characters. You've got the president, who's the formal head of state. Then there's the prime minister, the one actually running the government. The cabinet, that's the team of top ministers, is where the big decisions are really made. Of course, you have Parliament, which is meant to be the voice of the people. And last but not least, you have the civil servants, the people who are there year after year actually making things happen. And here's the play-by-play of how it all went down. Step 1. The Union Cabinet, with Prime Minister VP Singh at the helm, makes the official call. The very next day, the PM goes to Parliament and announces it to everyone. After that, the decision is handed off to the right department, in this case, the Department of Personnel and Training. That's where the civil servants get to work, drafting the official order exactly as the cabinet wanted. Finally, an officer signs on the dotted line, and poof, the office memorandum becomes real. This is a really cool way to understand the two sides of government. You have the political executive. Those are the ministers, the ones we elect. They're the ones who decide the policy, the big picture. Think of it like this. They decide where the car is going. Then you have the permanent executive, the civil servants. They're the experts, the pros, in how things get done. They're the ones who know the best route to actually get to that destination. But hold on, you might be thinking, why does the minister, who might not be the expert on a topic, get the final word over a civil servant who's been doing this for 30 years? And the answer is actually pretty simple. It comes down to democracy. The ministers were elected by the people. They're accountable to us. The idea is that the will of the people is supreme, and the minister is the one empowered to carry out that will. So, the decision is made, the order is out. And just like that, the story spills out of the quiet government buildings and right into the noisy streets of the country. And the reaction? Wow. It was instant and it was intense. The whole country just split in two. On one side, you had people who believed this was a vital step for social justice, and they held huge rallies to support it. But on the other side, you had people who felt it was totally unfair, that it was robbing deserving people of opportunities. They organized massive protests against it. And yeah, some of these protests got violent. For a moment there, it felt like the country itself was on the verge of breaking apart. And this is just perfect. It shows you how much this whole debate grabbed everyone's attention. The topic of reservation was so big that even those famous Amul butter ads, the ones that always have a clever take on the news, made cartoons about it. I mean, when a government policy makes it onto a butter ad, you know you've hit a major nerve. So let's recap the situation. The government has made its move. A huge chunk of the population is furious and completely against it. It's a total stalemate. So what do? In a democracy, how do you possibly resolve a conflict this big? Who gets to be the referee when the government and the people are at a complete impasse? This is where the third pillar of democracy makes its entrance. It's not the politicians who debate the laws, and it's not the officials who carry them out. It's the judiciary, the courts, the people whose job it is to interpret the laws. See, people didn't just shout in the streets. They were smart. They used the system itself. All sorts of people and groups who were against the order filed lawsuits in courts all over the country. Their legal argument was pretty straightforward. Hey, courts, please declare this government order illegal and put a stop to it. So what did the Supreme Court do? They took all these different cases and bundled them into one giant landmark case. It's now famously known as the Indira, Sawhney, and others versus the Union of India case. 11 of the top judges sat down to hear arguments from everybody involved. It was a legal showdown that would decide the fate of this whole policy. And then, in 1992, the verdict dropped. The Supreme Court announced that the reservation order was valid. It could stand. But, and this is the really important part, they also told the government it had to make a change. They said that the well-to-do persons from these backward classes, what's often called the creamy layer, shouldn't get the benefit of reservation. So the court didn't just give a thumbs up or thumbs down. It actually tweaked the policy. So let's just tally up the score here. You had the cabinet, who made the big policy call, the president, who made the formal announcement, the government officials, the civil servants who did the paperwork and issued the order, and then the Supreme Court came in, settled the whole fight, and even fine-tuned the final result. You see, every single institution had its own specific, crucial part to play. Now, when you look at this whole story, a decade of arguing, protests in the streets, long court battles, it's easy to feel a little frustrated, right? Democratic institutions can seem so slow, so complicated. All the rules and meetings and procedures can feel like they're just causing delays. You might even start to think, wouldn't it be easier if one person could just make a decision and get it done? But here's a thought I want to leave you with. Are all these complications and delays a bug in the system, or are they actually a feature, a kind of built-in safety net that makes sure lots of different voices get heard, that big arguments can be settled peacefully, and maybe, just maybe, makes it really hard to rush through a bad decision? What do you think?